Hello and welcome. I'm Liz Booker, literary aviatrix, and I am excited to talk with the author of a new memoir that launched in May of 2025, How Not to Fly an Airplane. Fewer than 10% of pilots and aircraft mechanics are women. These are their stories of tenacity, adventure, and courage. Stories with the power to inspire, heal, and connect. Welcome to the Literary Aviatrix community, where we leverage the power of story to build and celebrate our community and inspire the next generation of aviation. Shirley Phillips, welcome.
Great to see you.
I'm so excited to talk with you about this book. Congratulations for all of us because it's new. It just launched in May 2025. Can you give us a summary of the book?
Yeah, it's a memoir, and it's kind of the story of my life as a pilot, but a lot of it is about being a flight instructor. And I was also a college professor teaching aeronautics. So there's some stories about flying professionally, but a lot of it's about teaching other people how to fly, interspersed with things that happen in my life throughout the book.
Well, that's super cool. I can imagine so many people will be interested to read that because so many civilian pilots have to start out their path that way to no matter what their final destination might be in aviation. They start out as instructors. And so I'm sure that there's going to be chock full of great information and advice and experience from you. Can you tell me a little bit how you got into aviation? Like what sparked your interest?
My father was always interested in flying, but he was nearsighted and he was in the Marine Corps and he knew he couldn't fly for the Marines, but he was loading ordnance onto Sky Raiders, which are planes that you're probably more familiar than I am, but you can load rockets on under the wings, I guess, is what he described. And doing that all day, he could, watch the planes take off and land. And he actually had a buddy in the Marine Corps that used to talk about flying in space with a lot. And he always told me that buddy was named Story. And many years later, I realized that this buddy of his was Story Musgrave, the astronaut that's, done more missions than just about anybody. So
That's incredible.
yeah, so that was how my father got interested in flying. And he just took me, and I have an identical twin sister. And we were bored one summer day. So he took us down to the airport and he bought us a flight, like an introductory flight. And so the minute I looked out the window and saw the wheels not touching the ground, I just thought this was the coolest thing ever. And I just decided I was going to do this for a living, and I didn't care what kind of plane they paid me to fly. I just wanted to make a living flying airplanes. So
Oh, that's so great. Did your sister find an interest in it too?
she got her private certificate, but then she always wanted to go into finance. So she worked in finance for several different airlines, and then she bought an airplane, and then she helped build an airplane. Yeah, so she was involved in that way, but she never did it really professionally.
That's so great. So, what did your path look like once you decided that the bug had bitten you? How did you pursue your career?
It was like a lot of people who didn't have a lot of money for flying lessons. I worked at the airport. I was babysitting. I was shoveling snow because we're in New Hampshire. I did anything I could to make some money. And whenever my parents would give me a little bit of money for something, I remember one time my mother said, here's a few dollars. You only have like 2 pairs of pants. Here, go buy some pants. And of course, I ran down to the airport, put it on my flying account. So I did whatever I could to pay for the lessons. And so I just I remember working a long time to earn enough money so I could get my instrument rating. That was a big hurdle. So I wanted to have the money saved up so I could just take all the lessons for my instrument rating and not have to spread it out. And so by the time I was 20, I had my instrument and my commercial just by flying at the local airport. Um, but I was lucky because the airport manager at that airport was just a superb flight instructor. And I got really great training there. So
Which airport was that?
it's in Rochester, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's passed now, but he ended up flying for Southwest for a while.
So you got your commercial, and then I'm assuming you became a CFI because you
Yep.
talk about that in your book. So what did that look like? And then where did you go from there?
Um, well, when I got my CFI, my first student, one of them was my father, because that was kind of the deal. He helped me when he could. And I said, well, hey, if you help me, I'll get my CFI and then I can teach you how to fly.
How cool.
Yeah, so he was one of my first students. Um, and then I just picked up students at the airport. A lot of the students I had were the first 3 or 4 were state troopers
Hmm,
in New Hampshire because we had a Cessna 150. And because of the weight limitations, all the state troopers are like 6'2" and
right.
240 pounds. And I was the only one that fit in the airplane with them. So I, I would get those students, things
Wow.
like that. So I went to the university, state university near my home. Um, I majored in business. Just, my dad's like, you got to have a backup plan, but
Solid advice. Yeah.
yeah, but I was working 2 or 3 jobs and I was flight instructing all through college. And for me, flight instructing wasn't just about earning flight time. I just loved it. I love teaching.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just really fell in love with it. I like the challenge of figuring out how to make a lesson worthwhile and help someone discover something, and I love watching them get their license and solo. And when I was in college, I had actually heard about a college in New Hampshire where they had a flight program, and I had wanted to go there, but we didn't have the money. And it was called Daniel Webster College. And so when I graduated from the university, I applied there because I knew that I wanted to be an instructor there because they had Moonies, they had Cap 10s, they had motor gliders. And I just thought, this is the greatest flight instructing job you can get.
Oh, yeah.
So I got hired there and worked there for about 4 years. Then I got hired by a commuter airline. Kind of was really on my way, but I also wanted to have children. And
Mhm.
uh, so by then it was like the early 90s
Okay.
and not a lot of places were hiring. And the week that I found out I was pregnant, my airline went out of business. So,
Oh,
and there really weren't many places hiring. So I went out on, well, I thought I was on maternity leave. It turned out to be unemployment.
oh my gosh.
And everybody I knew at that time was getting, furloughed and stuff. But
Mm.
so I had my first daughter, and then I thought, well, I think I'd like to have another child and then go back to flying instead of going back and then having another child. And when my second daughter was born, she has a very rare genetic disorder. They didn't even really expect her to live. And
Oh my goodness.
so it was pretty much a full time job getting her to appointments and everything. And I didn't want to be away from home as much because it was just too precarious with her. So um, I went back to graduate school. I started working with children with disabilities as a physical therapist. And I kind of used that as a way to get into human factors in aviation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then a few years after things got a little more stabilized, I got hired to work for an airline, and I worked as a simulator instructor for a while for them, which I loved because, again, it was teaching and I could potentially fly for them, when I was ready. And then 9/11 happened. So they furloughed all of us. So I've had kind of like many people, a very not a straight path along the way. After they let us all go, I went to the Women in Aviation conference and I ran into my old boss from Daniel Webster College. And I said, teaching for you at the college, I love that job. And she said, you want to come back? And I said, yes, please.
Oh, how great.
Yeah. So I went back to working for them. By then I had type rating in the Airbus, and I ended up being a faculty member for them. And so I was teaching for them for like 10 years.
Oh, how cool. What a
And
great experience.
yeah, and I loved it. And I got into human factors with my background with, I had a lot of physiology and things like that. So um I was teaching human factors and doing safety seminars and things like that. And then that college went under after about 10 years. And then I ended up working for, um, it was a company that did research for MIT. And I worked on collision avoidance systems doing research and was on the
Oh.
flight test team for collision avoidance systems.
Oh, that's really cool too. Wow.
And that was a great job. Then I got sick. I They didn't know what was wrong at first, but it turned out I had a birth defect and it was causing my pancreas to be inflamed all the time. And it took them 2 years to diagnose it, but I had to have a surgery where they removed my pancreas. And, I wasn't able to go back to flying because of that.
Oh, that's a heartbreak.
Yeah, that that was really hard. But I
Mm.
wanted to stay involved in aviation. I had to go out on disability, but all the time I was teaching, I always used storytelling as a way of, teaching different lessons. And
Mhm.
people are always said, you should write a book someday. And so I went back to school to get my master's in science writing. And while I was there, I wrote some essays about teaching flying. And that's where one of my professors said, I think you could definitely write a book out of this. And I was still sick a lot of the time, but when I was in the hospital, I was bored out of my mind, because I would end up in the hospital for like 10 days at a time.
Oh my goodness.
And so I started writing. And I wrote a lot of the book while I was in the hospital.
Oh my gosh. Well, that answers my next question is why did you write a book and how? So you wrote this book. It came out in March 2025. You launched it, or sorry, May
May.
last
Yep.
month. We're talking in June.
Yep.
That's incredible. Congratulations on the launch of
Thank
the
you.
book. We can't wait to read it. So, so people told you should write a book. Lots of ladies in aviation get told they should write a book,
Mhm.
and you had the time and the impetus to do it. What do you hope it accomplishes?
Um, it was kind of an extension of the teaching that I had done. I hope that I could use aviation as a way to teach some lessons about life. And And I wanted it, kind of two things. I wanted to share my passion for aviation with other people.
Mhm.
And I know people are interested in aviation, even if they don't want to fly airplanes. And there's so many things you can do in the field.
Mhm.
Even when I couldn't fly anymore, I was still, had some great jobs in aviation. So I wanted to kind of bring attention to that, but I also wanted to write something that might be inspirational to someone else who didn't necessarily have, a lot of money growing up. Um, Maybe it's a profession where there's not a lot of women and people are telling you, you can't do this because, you know, it, that's what guys do. Um, so I kind of wanted to write about something like that too, to maybe inspire someone else who wants to do something. It might not be flying airplanes, but it might be something else that they're being told, no, you're maybe too old, or you're not, you know, you're not strong enough, you're not tall enough, you're not whatever it is. I was told all those things and I still did it. So
Well, good for
that's kind of
you.
both of those reasons wanted to write the book.
That's really great. Good for you. And I'm sure it's going to be an inspiration to a lot of people. So I went on your website, and at the bottom of your homepage, you have a little video of you participating in the moth. And I love the moth. And if anybody isn't familiar, you can check your local area for moth presentations, and you can sign up to do. I haven't spoken at one, but I have friends who have. And then, of course, you can listen to it on National Public Radio. They select a few of those, but so that little clip, everybody go watch it. But I really loved it. It's about an engine out scenario with you as an instructor in a Mooney, I think, if that's
Mhm.
correct. And then you talk about how it, once the engine went out, it transitioned to a glider lesson because you had a student in the
Yep.
plane. And as a glider pilot, so I'm not qualified pilot, but I've been gliding for the past 3 years, just recreationally for fun with a good friend of mine. And I am a total convert. I think that every pilot should start off in gliders or do it early on in their career to gain confidence over engine out procedures, which obviously it did that for you. And it sounded like that came in like butter for you. So,
Yeah.
what other stories might we find in the book that you think are fun to maybe give people a little taste?
Um, yeah, it's kind of a combination of, there's some serious stories. I wrote about one of my students who died, who was a good friend of mine, and how difficult that was. Some of the stories are just funny. I had a student who always used to, he would lose his temper in the airplane. He was fine on the ground, but every time we got in the air and I tried to tell him something, he would literally just have a temper tantrum. And he'd start banging at the doors and really losing it. I flew them a couple times, and talked to him on the ground, and I finally, decided I need to get a little more information about him, and said, "Man, you really seem to get upset in the airplane when I try to tell you, you know, give you advice on how to fly. That's my job." And he said, "Well, I need to take a break from flying because I'm actually got to go to court um, for my murder trial."
Oh my word.
You're you're what?
What? Hey, maybe we won't fly together anymore.
Yeah, and there's more to the story, but yeah, that was one of the funny stories.
Oh my goodness.
You run into some characters when you teach flying and you get into an airplane with somebody you don't know very well, and they freeze on the controls. I had one of those.
I have questions about that. So that's one of the things I have a lot of people tell me, "Oh, well, you should go get your CFI," because I went through the military and it's not something that we needed to do. And the people teaching the initial training to pilots. They're assigned to the flight school. They go through rigorous training to be able to do that, all this stuff. I didn't do any of that, and so I would have to go and get my CFI. But like I don't really want to be stuck in an aircraft with somebody who is stronger than I am, who has their hands on the controls, and I'm going to have to talk them down. Like, how did you deal with that?
Again, that first instructor that I had, he was with me through all of my flight training, including my CFI.
Okay.
And he taught me what to do if I had a student freeze on the controls. And what he taught me to do was, if you couldn't talk him out of it, um, he said, backhand them across the nose.
Oh,
He said, usually if you hit somebody in the face, and especially if you hit them in the nose just right, um, it's going to startle them and they'll let go, and then you
right.
can get the controls back. So this guy was a rugged guy, and he was locked in on the controls, and I just backhanded him across the nose, and he let go, and his nose was bleeding, and
Oh, damn, girl. You got him good.
yeah, it was effective. But
See, I'd be afraid they'd hit me back. That's scary.
I was a little concerned about that,
Yeah.
but he didn't. He was just, yeah, no. I think he was, it was kind of sad because, he was dealing with his nosebleed, and I got him safely on the ground, and he didn't want to talk about it. He just like ran out the door, left his logbook. I mean,
I'm sure he was embarrassed. Yeah.
yeah, I think he really was embarrassed. And
Yeah.
I don't,
Wow.
and I was just substituting for the day. So
Oh, no.
I wasn't his regular instructor. So I don't think he really wanted to fly with me in the first place. But I don't know if he came back to flying or not. But
Wow.
yeah. So they do teach you how to deal with such things.
That's crazy. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. Give me, like, if I was going to instruct, I would want more advanced students who had already demonstrated a propensity to be able to fly for sure. Well, that's incredible. All the respect to you for putting yourself out there like that. And do you know, like, how many students have you graduated? Do you know? Like,
Oh my. I don't know. I know I have students who fly for all the airlines, all the branches of the military. Um, and actually, that's one of the really neat things about the book. I need to get the message out to people other than my friends and former students, because I've done some readings, and I had a student come all the way from Texas to New Hampshire to be at my book launch.
oh, that's so wonderful. Well, that says a lot about you for
And
sure.
yeah, and the people that are coming to my readings are former students, or they're reaching out and ordering the book. And
Okay.
so that's been really, really great to see that
Yeah.
you made an impact.
Absolutely. So what makes a good flight student?
A good flight student.
Yeah, what makes a good student?
I thought you could ask me what makes a good instructor.
That's my next question. But
Um,
from the for those young people out there, or however old they are, young, old, just starting out, what from your perspective as a seasoned instructor made it easy to teach them?
yeah, actually, a couple of the best students that I ever had were women. Um, they
Any
sub,
reason why? What about them?
um, they these two women I'm thinking of, they didn't come into it with any preconceptions. They were, I think, maybe a good match with me. I don't know. They weren't overly confident,
Mhm.
um, but they had enough confidence in themselves, and they'd had some challenges to overcome. So I think that might have made them a little more persistent when things were difficult. But I think a good student is just someone who is really passionate about doing it and isn't necessarily worried about, am I going to solo in 10 hours? That learn understands you're going to learn at the pace you're going to learn at, and that, and obviously in the military, they have more rigid rules about that. And in the college program I taught in, there were sometimes more rigid rules about that. But if you're going to learn, just in any flight school, being focused on your own progress. And I think the best flight students are the ones that understand the value in doing what some people call chair flying,
Yeah.
where, you know, they go home after the lesson and they sit there and they review the whole flight in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got that mental picture in their mind of how they want things to go and what they want to fix for next time. And I've
That's
seen,
a real thing, people. That's a real thing. I did my, believe it or not, my master's thesis, my critical thesis in writing about proprioception, and chair flying was a huge portion of that because the way that, for my angle on it was I wanted to be able to access the parts of the brain that you access when you actually physically do something, some physical motion. And you can do that using the right techniques in writing, but it's a real thing. Like if you practice those things in your mind and you chair fly, you rehearse mentally, it does prepare you better. Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was basically flying a 172 for a number of years, when I had taken, some time with my daughter to going to training on the Airbus.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had turboprop time and everything, but the last airplane I had flown for a while was a Cessna 172. So I went from that to you're in Airbus training. And in some ways, the Airbus is different than other airplanes anyway, but I don't think I would have gotten through that if I didn't, I just got my brain back into
Yeah.
mentally flying,
Yeah.
before I got in the simulator. And that made a huge difference.
I mean, that's good advice for any, and we're all going to have a moment, when we get out of the aircraft for whatever reason, whether it's a health reason, whether, you're a woman and you have a child and you take some time off or whatever. So yeah, it's important for everybody to understand that technique and how much it can help you. Okay, so then what makes a good flight instructor?
um, I think you need to be very knowledgeable. And if you're not knowledgeable about something, you need to absolutely have the willingness to say, I am not sure about that, and look it up and get the answer for your students, and not, just say, don't worry about that or something. I think that's really important. But I think in terms of the airplane, I think the fact that I wasn't a super duper student at 14, I hadn't driven a car yet, I struggled in the beginning for sure, and I didn't have a lot of confidence. And I think because sometimes I had to be shown something a few different ways. When I became an instructor, I didn't have just one way to show someone how to do it. I had
Excellent.
two or three different ways. And I noticed that I worked with a lot of instructors doing instructor training, and some of them had a hard time that went through training without any issues because they didn't understand how the student couldn't figure this out. And I could because I had struggled with a lot of things. So I think it's not necessarily the best instructors, the ones that, were an ace in training. I think sometimes it's the ones that struggled a little bit and had multiple ways of approaching it.
Oh, I'll buy that. I'll buy that all day long because because I've definitely been on the other end of that where somebody is trying to convey something to me and it's not coming. They're not reaching the right part of my brain to make that work. And then yeah, if they're able to present it in a different way or recognize that disconnect, that's a lot better for both of us. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so like my one last question is, what is your favorite aircraft to instruct a brand new pilot in, and why?
Ooh, brand new pilot.
Yeah, somebody who's going through their early hours for private.
I think it would be a glider. I mean,
Yeah.
I flew motorized gliders, so we didn't get towed, but
Okay.
you know,
That towing, I got to be honest with you, I'm still not comfortable with the towing. Like I do not love that part of it yet.
yeah,
But I can take off and that feels fine. It's when we're bouncing around behind the other plane that still gives me the heebie-jeebies because
yeah, I haven't had that experience. So
I feel like I'm going to pull it out of the sky. But then again, like the landing engine out and getting sort of the flight coordination is probably a really good way to start. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had Grove 109Bs, and they were using those at the Air Force Academy for training. And there were some things that you could demonstrate in that motor glider that you really couldn't demonstrate in, a Cessna.
Like what?
One of my favorite ones is people have misconceptions about stalls and spins. And they think, if the ball's in the center, I'm good, and
Right.
that's not what it is. In the motor glider, you can show them, you can get into what would be a steep bank turn is, 30 degrees, a steep bank turn, the glider. And the ball can be in the center and you get such a differential between those two wings
Mm-hmm.
that when you get it to stall, it goes right into a spin entry.
Yeah.
And so then they have to think about, oh, it's not just, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
Really
it's,
important stuff, especially for those approach turns to landing.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
So I,
that's
I
neat.
loved it for that.
Now, I saw some stuff in the book blurb. So first of all, when did you get your license? How old were you?
17,
You're 17.
17th
That's cool.
birthday.
Oh, that's cool. You started taking lessons when you were 14. Yeah.
Yeah. Sold when I was 16.
And then got your license when you
My
were
sister, since she was my twin, so we both got our private on our 17th birthday.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How cool.
And then there was a little gap because I had to save the money to get my instrument and commercials. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't get all the way through all of that until I was 20. But
Yeah. Okay. And then I thought I saw something about you being, so you talked about having children sort of, during the break, but I thought I saw something about being the first um, pregnant female at your airline. That coincided with the first child?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
first child. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what was, I mean, this is the company that kind of went under. Yeah.
Mm.
So what was your experience though? I mean, did they know that you were pregnant? How did that go?
Um, so it was a great airline. It had been around for a long time, and
What
it
was the
was
name of it?
um, they used to be called Brockway.
Okay.
Brockway. There was a Brockway, New York, and Brockway, Vermont.
Okay.
And I flew for the Vermont side in the Saab 340.
Oh,
Um, and our chief pilot was a woman, and we had, I think, maybe 80 or 90 pilots, and six of them were women.
wow.
Um,
And this is in the 90s or late
yeah,
90s.
early
Yeah.
90s. Yeah,
Early 90s. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
and
impressive.
yeah, and Vander Crook was our chief pilot. She's actually been mentioned in a book, Weather Flying, I think is one of the books she was mentioned. she was spectacular. Everybody loved her as a chief pilot. I've lost touch with her, but um, so I had kind of talked to her about the fact that I did want to have children, and she said, "Yeah, I don't know much about that," because she hadn't had children, and she says, "We'll figure it out, when it happens." And when I got pregnant, I I immediately didn't feel well. I was really fatigued and nauseous, and I just, from day one, I was like, "I gotta be pregnant." I don't feel right.
Yep.
And, yeah, there's a funny story in the book about it, but so I talked to Vanda, and she said, "Yeah, why don't you, go see your obstetrician," which I didn't have one yet, but, do it sooner rather than later and see what they say. Maybe we can put you on, disability for a few weeks, and then you'll feel better, and then you can fly and then go out again. So I went to see this obstetrician. I told her I was a pilot and I was worried because, how long I should keep flying. I said, "But I feel like I'm really having trouble right now." And she looked at me and she's like, "They have two pilots on those things, and that's why they have two pilots. So don't worry about it. If you pass out, that's what the other pilot's for."
Oh, that's an interesting twist. Not the direction I expected that to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
No, no, thank you.
yeah, like, not only are you trying to tell me my job, but
Right?
I was like,
Oh,
okay,
it's fine. If you're
yeah.
puking in the cockpit, it's fine. There's another pilot there. No, that's
So
crazy.
I got another obstetrician. I'm like, okay, I don't want
Good
this.
call. Yeah.
And the next week, the airline went under. So
So it was a moot point. Yeah.
yeah, but I was the first one, and they're like, "You'll just let us know what you need,"
So
kind of thing.
interesting. That's so interesting.
I mean, they didn't even have, a uniform that I could wear or anything. In
Hmm.
fact, when I first started flying there, I couldn't even find a white blouse that had the, place to put the epaulets on.
Right.
I couldn't find one in a woman's small that I needed,
Yeah.
so I had to get a men's small. And
It-
then it was so huge,
Hanging off of you. Yeah.
and I was so obsessed about my tie that my first day on the line, I'm walking through the terminal. This is Vermont, everyone's friendly, and everyone's saying, "Your first day?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And, I'm like, "How does everyone know? Am I that bad that how do they know it's on my first day?" And we had the epaulets that were like skinny on one end and wider on the other end.
Oh,
And I put them on
put 'em
back.
on backwards. Everybody knows. Same problem in the military. Oh my goodness. If you put those things on backwards, everybody's gonna know.
I had no idea. I was so
Uh,
clueless. I really
aw.
was clueless. And I went into the pilot room and they're all snickering at me. And I'm like, okay, what is it?
Help a sister out, people. Yeah.
Yeah, till someone fixed them for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I asked you about your favorites before, and now I'm going to ask you about advice. So what advice do you have? I mean, you kind of talked a little bit about what makes a good student and what makes a good instructor, but do you have any like firm advice that you dole out on the regular?
Besides the whole chair flying when you're
Yeah,
learning to
no,
fly,
that's great. That's great.
I think if it's something you really want to do, then it's great if you can start early and build up your time, but
Mhm.
if you can do anything to work in the field of aviation while you're building your flight time, you will learn so much. And I think that really helped me along the way. Um, I even, when I worked for the airline where I was training on the Airbus, I taught ground school for them first,
Mhm.
and because they wouldn't hire me in the simulator, because the pilot for the Airbus he brought me in. He said, the last the last woman we had, she didn't work out. He said, we've had grown men cry trying to learn the Airbus. So I said,
Okay. You bring
I'm
a
like,
box of
okay,
tissues and help them out.
yeah, maybe I need to hire a few women. I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah. Did you not hire any more men the last time the last guy didn't work out? Like,
yeah,
none of that makes sense.
yeah. He was just a very macho guy. But
But so you started out in ground school with them.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, hopefully you won't run into those kinds of obstacles, but
Yeah.
um, and figure out a way around. If you can't go through, figure out a way around.
Yes, ma'am.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, and it was hard in the beginning too, because I certainly had circumstances that I could have complained and,
Mhm.
you know, gotten someone fired. And I, I, and I was offered a job once when I wasn't qualified for it. And I
Oh.
think it's because I was a woman. They were going to hire me even though I didn't have the flight time.
Hmm.
And they told me to just lie in my logbook. And, I just said, no, I'm not doing it.
Good.
Um, I don't think you should hire anyone that's not qualified. I told them, I was a pilot examiner at that point. I was doing check rides. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
think this should count for something. But
Yeah.
they had this rule about how many hours you had to be going back and forth. So I'm like, I'm not lying about my time. I figured you brought me in here because I have different experience. And he's like, no, I want you to just write down that you have this many hours. And, so
No.
don't compromise your standards. And, you know, it, and it will make a difference, because a couple of times I had to turn down jobs because they were doing stuff like this. And it's like, I'm not going to risk my life. I'm not going to risk my reputation. I'm not going to have someone think I got the job because I wasn't qualified and know that I wasn't qualified. So I'm not
Right.
going to take the job if I'm not qualified for it. But, you know, more often than not, it was a circumstance where I was overqualified and I couldn't get hired.
Interesting. Yeah.
But,
Does not surprise me though. Yep.
people
Common
get
theme.
fired for other reasons. That guy who gave me a hard time, he was out within a few months and it wasn't my doing.
Yeah.
Somebody else took care of it. But
Yeah, we can hope that their true colors are going to show. I mean, there are times when, especially now with the reporting, we have
yeah,
pretty clear guidelines about what
yeah,
you have to report and what you don't, or where the gray area is. I mean, but when you're in the gray area, you just have to make a judgment call. Is this guy or girl or whoever going to show their true colors elsewhere? And is it worth me having to go through the pain to I mean, there's a certain level of responsibility, I suppose, where you don't want anybody else to have to experience what you experienced. But
right.
there's also some self-preservation in there that many women like you in the time frame, especially that you guys were coming up, you had to do what you had to do,
Yeah.
but without compromising your integrity. So good job, good for you.
Yeah. I think trust your gut when it comes to, even in
Mm-hmm.
the airplane, I've told people if something doesn't feel right,
Mm-hmm.
listen to that,
Yeah,
because we know from human factors that you can process something
subconsciously.
right
Yeah.
that we can't even express yet to the person sitting beside us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but don't ignore that feeling. Just start double checking everything and,
Yeah.
because there probably is a reason you're feeling that way.
Yeah. No, that's great
That's
advice.
served me well a number of
Excellent.
times. Yeah.
So are you still working now or are you retired?
Uh, yeah, I'm on disability,
Yeah.
um, retired, sort of, other than the writing.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to do some more teaching. I was teaching an aviation safety course,
Mm-hmm.
for a local college, but it didn't continue. So, but I'd like to find that, or maybe teach writing, because I miss teaching.
Yeah.
So I, if I could do something like that, but yeah.
So you mentioned that you got this science writing degree, and you talked about how you started writing sort of your memories and stuff, especially when you were, we would call it med down in the military, when you were out of the aircraft and out of work, whatever. Um, so how did you go about compiling all of this work into a book, and what resources did you use to polish it to get it ready? And then how did you publish it?
Um, it took me 8 years before I would let go of it. And I have four great friends who are all professors, and they taught different subjects. One was a writer, but the others, taught sociology or whatever, or history. And they just said, okay, it's been 8 years. You got to let this thing go. But in those 8 years, I just started writing the stories kind of as singular essays
Mm-hmm.
and trying to publish them. And the I was really fortunate in grad school. One of my professors, like, go for it, just go for don't think about the percentages, just if it's good and I tell you to submit it, submit it. And he said, and I wrote a story that was called How Not to Fly an Airplane,
Aha.
which is the title of the book. I wrote that essay and I sent it to the Atlantic and they published it. And,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I was like,
That's crazy.
yeah, it was crazy because it's really hard to get published there. So I was like,
Absolutely.
and so that inspired me to keep writing stuff and then see if I could publish it. So I did publish like 4 or 5 of them, and I just kept rewriting the book, and I wasn't even sure if it was going to be separate essays or chronological. I just got a lot of advice when I was in graduate school for science writing about don't worry about where you're headed, get the stories down, and then you can worry about, what kind of box you're going to put it in and whatever. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. And I did try to get an agent. I didn't try real hard like a lot of people do, but I tried maybe 30 and I, pick ones I thought would be good, but I didn't get any real interest, although I got some good advice from a couple of them.
That's nice.
Yeah. And then I had gone to a reading at my local bookstore, and I always kind of listened to see where where they got their books published. And there was someone there who had a debut novel, and she had gotten published at Apprentice House, who published my book. And they're the only ones. They're affiliated with Loyola University in Maryland,
Okay.
and they teach writing and publishing. So, as part of their press, the students work with us on getting the book ready for publication
Oh,
and,
neat.
the cover. It was a student who came up with the cover for my book, and I love the cover for
That,
my book.
that's so great.
Yeah, so I remembered that she said she had a really good experience with them. It was collaborative. They're working with, they have staff members, but they also have the college students that they're working with. And I said, hey, that sounds perfect to me because I'm used to working with college students.
Right.
So when I couldn't find an agent, I submitted when they had the open call, and they're the ones that picked me up. So
That's fascinating. Okay, and so we can any authors who are, have an inkling that maybe that might be an option for them, can they just go to their website and get the
mhm.
information for submissions?
Yeah, Apprentice House Press. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, cool. That's the first I've heard of anything sort of like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really good process. It took about a year.
Okay,
Um,
that's not terrible.
and it can take a long time if you get even,
a
if you're lucky
traditional
enough.
publish. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could take a very long time, and I'm running out of time here, so to
Aren't
publish
we
my
all? Yeah.
first book when I was 62.
Oh, good job. You're a spring chicken. You're fine. So, are they doing anything to help you promote it?
That is one, maybe one downside, although a lot of small presses that are well known, they don't have a lot of money to promote
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Um, they don't have a lot of money to promote it. They do what they can. I was sick on and off a lot. Unfortunately, I have problems eating, and it can come and go,
Yeah.
and it's not very predictable for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give this book the best shot I could, so I did hire a publicist.
Oh, good. Good.
And I figured, well, I want to learn
Mm-hmm.
how to market the book, so maybe I'll hire the publicist and kind of watch what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's really paid off in sales yet, but
Yeah.
it was a good experience as far as learning about publishing and marketing and stuff.
Are you going to be at any events that people can see you in person?
I know I do have something set up at the Aviation, New Hampshire Aviation Museum.
Oh, cool.
Anyone that's in New Hampshire, but they've got me scheduled like for November, and I keep telling them, yeah, someone cancels, we could do it a little sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or do it twice. That would be cool.
but I've tried some other aviation museums. It, I wanted to go to Women in Aviation, but the book wasn't out this
No,
year.
yeah. But we'll have you next year.
Yeah, I would really like to do that.
Yeah, we'll have you come next year. That'll be fun. We're
And
going to
I've
be in
been
Dallas.
reading all you do out there for the authors, so
It's so fun. It's so fun. You're going to love it. You're going to have the time of your life. It's
yeah,
amazing.
I'd really like to do that.
And then
So
where can we find the book? Are you on social media? Where can we find you? Where can we find the book?
yeah, so I'm a big advocate of independent bookstores and supporting people who are supporting these kind of books. So even bookshop
Mhm.
is a good place.
So just let me just do the commercial that everybody hears at the beginning of my podcast, which is you can support your local independent bookstore and me by using the bookshop links on my website. When I redesigned the website, I wanted people to have that option to support their independent bookstores because it's important to me, and they pay out like exponentially more to me. I'm not making any money doing this, people. I make no money, but just the fact that they pay out exponentially more to me as an affiliate than Amazon, like, it's all goodness. It's all goodness if you go through Bookshop. All
Yeah,
right, I'm done.
yes, absolutely. Go through bookshop.
Yeah.
Um, you can go another way, but I would rather
It's
you go through
Yeah, you
bookshop.
can get it tomorrow if you go the other way. If you can wait a week, do the right thing, people.
Yes, do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Or
And
even go to your local bookstore and
tell
have
them to order it. Yes, exactly.
and I've
Absolutely.
gone to 4 independent bookstores that are around me, and they've all put it on their shelves, which is
And yeah, that's a great way. That's one way to get it in front of a new audience. And another, you can go to your local library and ask them to get a copy of it. And then you can get it on the shelf for more people to read at the library. So, another
yes,
way to do that. And we can find you at your website, which I mentioned earlier, where you can watch that awesome moth interview, or moth piece that you did. It's just a presentation. It's a competition. It looks like came in second with that, and I love that story. And then are you on social media anywhere that we can find you?
I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I've started Instagram.
Go girl!
So I'm
Awesome.
trying.
All right. Well, we'll be out here helping you and supporting you. Well, Shirley, is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up?
uh, no, I think we covered everything.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations again. We look forward to reading and talking about your book. And we're super excited if we get to see you at WAI in the spring.
Yes, me too.